Hi guys, sorry I'm missing today, but I'm at a meeting at district office. So here's what you'd be missing if we were in class. We need to start by looking at the major historical changes in political parties. In order to do this, we have to come to an understanding that before the Constitution, there were no American political parties, there were just social movements. In fact, the idea of a political party pre Constitution would be seen as an act of treason. Example would be the Boston Tea Party was a political party. To describe a political party the way that we think of them today would have been foreign to the people at this time. And so when we're looking at this, we have to look at it as pre Constitution and then post Constitution, because after the Constitution, we have the development of what we consider today to be real political parties. But first, we need to reestablish what we know about the pre Constitution social movements. You had the Federalists, who wanted a strong Constitution and a stronger central government. That's Hamilton, Jay, Madison, Adams. You can see the list on the screen. And the Anti Federalists, who were pushing back against them, that was Thomas Jefferson, Thomas Paine, Patrick Henry, George Mason. And this social movement, this social idea of, hey, there's these two different major political viewpoints in our country, was seen as part of a healthy discourse between rational people within a society. And so when you're looking at this, you have to understand that these are not political parties. These are not groups that are necessarily competing. Their interests are competitive, but they themselves are not competing with one another directly. They're just trying to make sure that the community at large sees their interests. So when we're looking at the future political parties, we have to know that this exists. You're going to have to know these four tests. But these aren't really political parties. And when we look at what happens with Madison on the next slide, you'll kind of see why. All right, so after the Constitution is passed, the Anti Federalists lose, and so they kind of fade out of existence. Not the people themselves, of course, but the social movement, because the fight's over. They lost, or at least they didn't win. Losing is too strong of a term. They did get a Bill of Rights, they did get the 10th Amendment to guarantee states' rights, so it's not a loss exactly, but they didn't win, because here we are with a new constitution. And during Washington's term in office, we see the first true political parties develop. You have the Federalists, who are backing the new central government. They're headed by Alexander Hamilton and John Adams, and they kind of hold power because, don't tell anybody, but Washington is a closet Federalist. And between these two parties, whoever has Washington has the power. Washington is still, even by the end of his presidency, seen as kind of this godlike figure and has a huge positive impact on the political spectrum that he's most closely aligned with. So you have the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans, who are the new political party that kind of come to the front here, and they're both fighting over Washington. Washington, as I said, is a Federalist. The Democratic Republicans, on the other hand, they kind of pick up this mantle of strong state government, but they're now working within the confines of the new Constitution. And you'll notice that Madison has moved from being a Federalist before the Constitution to now being a Democratic Republican under the Constitution. He has a fundamental belief in the Constitution as being a good thing. But now that the Constitution is enforced, he needs to make sure that his belief of strong state governments taking precedence over a weaker central government comes to a head. So his membership, he becomes kind of the card-carrying, pseudo leader of the Democratic Republicans. Jefferson is the real leader of the Democratic Republicans. He's the head. But Madison is kind of the body. He takes what Jefferson wants and makes it happen. Henry's kind of the mouth. He is a powerful orator. He's spoken out. He's the famous for the liberty or death speech, and he speaks out against this new central government. So these three men kind of craft this new Democratic Republican Party. Now, I should stop here and mention, because I'm sure some of you are thinking, wait a second, Mr. Thompson. In Washington's last his last farewell address, he said, "Don't join political parties and don't ally with people in Europe." Well, yes, he did say that, and that's probably what most closely aligned to his personal opinion. But that speech was written by Hamilton. And it's likely that when Hamilton wrote those words, he wasn't talking about don't join political parties in general. He was saying don't join political parties, join the right political party, the Federalists. Now, like I said, Washington probably would have spoken that line much more neutral because it was closer to his political opinion. And even though he was a Federalist, it wasn't like he was out there parading in the streets for the Federalist cause. So now you have the two political parties who have seized power in the United States. And these two are going to fight against each other for the next few years until the Federalists self-destruct. And this is what happens. The two leaders of the Federalists begin taking potshots at each other. On the left, you have Alexander Hamilton. On the right, you have John Adams. And these two men are both incredibly arrogant people. And when Adams wins the election and takes over, he makes sure that Hamilton does not have a job in the government anymore. He cuts off Hamilton's access. Jefferson is Adams' vice president, so Hamilton has no recourse there. And Adams begins to make snide public remarks about Hamilton, saying things like, he secretly wants a monarchy and talking about his family. And so Hamilton is not going to take this lying down. He publishes a pamphlet lambasting the new president and calling into question his mental health and his ability to set aside his pride to run the country. And this is not to say that Hamilton is baseless in his accusations, but John Adams was not about to destroy the country in a fit of rage as Hamilton had written. Essentially, what this did was it split the Federalists into the Adams Federalists and the Hamilton Federalists. And within 14 years, by 1814, this political party ceases to exist. And everyone is a Democratic Republican. But that doesn't last forever. With the Democratic Republicans being the only party in the United States, that means you have everybody of every different political opinion all sharing a political party. And that isn't going to work real well. In fact, the Democratic Republicans start to swing more towards the old Federalist idea of a stronger central government. This isn't to say that they fully go that way, but more than what a lot of the people within the party are comfortable with. And as we get to the 1820s, we see the rise of Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson takes the Democratic Republicans and he splits off his own little segment and just calls them Democrats. Jackson is a legend. He's a war hero from the War of 1812. He is probably one of the top 5 toughest people to ever been in office. There are all sorts of stories of things that he did. He survived an assassination attempt and then grabbed the assassin and beat him with his cane until police arrived. And then once the police were there, beat him a few more times just for good measure. He fought over 100 duels while in the White House. He was